The 3rd century crisis. Crisis means 3rd century crisis. So crisis means time of great disagreement, confusion, or suffering. So now we would study about the factors leading to the cause of the 3rd century crisis in the Roman Empire. And the first point is based on absence of peace, prosperity, and economic expansion in Roman Empire. So the 1st and 2nd centuries were specifically observed as a period of immense peace, prosperity, and economic expansion in Roman Empire, whereas the 3rd century has brought, the major signs of disunity, economic and political instability. That is why it is called as what? The absence of peace, prosperity, and economic expansion. And the second cause is based on the attack of Iranian ruler on Rome. So in Iran, a new and aggressive Sasanian dynasty, which was under the rule of Shapur I, attacked Rome and killed Roman armies of around 60,000 after capturing the eastern capital of Antioch. So there is survived an evidence dealt with the attack of Shapur I in a famous rock inscription engraved in 3 languages. This image shows Shapur I. And these are the Roman coins. Here you would find the coin of Shapur I. So this rock inscription depicts the scene of Shapur I attack on Roman soldiers. And the 3rd cause of the Roman crisis was the repeated attacks of Germanic tribes such as the Franks, the Goths, the Alemanni, etc. on Rome. So these Germanic tribes had attempted repeated, invasions on the whole line of the provinces from the period of 233 to 280, that expanded from the Black Sea to the Alps and southern Germany, and which as a result the Romans were forced to hand over much parts of their territories beyond the Danube to them. And these pictures showing the attack of Germanic tribes on Rome. And this map shows the invasions of the Germanic tribes such as Goths, Franks on Rome. And the 4th cause of the 3rd century crisis was the rapid succession of emperors to the throne. The observance, of rapid succession of emperors to the throne, particularly in the 3rd century, such as by enthroning 25 emperors in 47 years, which clearly, indicates a clear symptom of strain faced by the Roman Empire. So those are the 4 points dealt with the causes of the third century crisis, or the factors leading to the third century crisis. Next, we would study what the Roman family. The first feature was based on widespread prevalence of nuclear family. So nuclear family means a single family which includes a man and his wife and children. So there was the widespread, prevalence of the nuclear family in the Roman society. So unlike others, adult sons didn't live with their families, and it was exceptional, case for adult brothers to share a common household. Slaves were also included in the family for carrying out a wide range of domestic activities. Okay, Roman woman. So regarding the Roman woman, the woman's dowry was considered as the property of the husband for the duration of marriage, and they would become uh, independent, property owners on their father's death. So hence, Roman women enjoyed considerable legal rights in terms of owning or managing property. So the typical, form of marriage practiced was one where the wife didn't transfer to her father's authority, but rather, retained or kept full rights in the property of a natal family. So the Roman women usually enjoyed complete legal independence in terms of giving divorce to their husbands. So what all it required was a notice of the law to remove the marriage by either husband or wife. So this picture shows the Roman woman wearing toga. It is a long rope made up of several yards of material. Next, marriages, were generally arranged, and it was clear, through an evidence that they were often, subject to domination by their own husbands. For instance, Augustine, who was once remained as the great Catholic bishop while spending most of his life in North Africa, his mother was regularly beaten by his father, and most, other wives living in that same town had experienced, the same grievance. So regarding the marriage, women were married off in the late teens or early 20s, which clearly, indicates of having a certain form of gender inequality practiced in the Roman Empire. And this picture shows what Augustine, the great Catholic bishop of North Africa. So regarding the Roman man, they were the head of the family. So that means a patriarchal system was established, and they had a considerable, rights in terms of handling decision of all kinds of familial matters. And men were married in their late 20s or early 30s, and men usually, received dowry from women during the event of wedding, and they also had shocking degree, of legal control over their children, such as a legal power of life and death in exposing unwanted children by leaving them out in the cold to die. This clothing worn by Roman man is also known as toga. As I stated before, it was a long robe made up of several yards of material. Next, we would move on to literacy. So, literacy means the ability to read and write. So here, the actual rates of casual literacy was greatly mm, differentiated between different parts of the Roman Empire. For example, there has a strong evidence of widespread casual literacy in Pompeii city. It was a typical Roman city which was once buried in the volcanic eruption. So the walls on the main streets of Pompeii often carried advertisements and graffiti which has run all over the city. In Egypt also there were hundreds of papyri survived, and most formal documents such as contracts were usually written by professional scribes tell us that X or Y alphabets is unable to read and write. So it is probable in Egypt that literacy was more widespread among certain categories such as the soldiers, army officers, and estate managers. So this image shows what Pompeii city, and this one is a piece of writing done on papyri. So regarding the culture, there were cultural, diversity of the Roman Empire, and this was mainly reflected in several features. And there was a vast, diversity in terms of religious cults and local deities, practiced by Romans. So there has a plurality of languages which were spoken by Romans, such as Aramaic, Coptic, Celtic, Punic, Berber, etc. And many of these languages were purely based on oral until the introduction of a new script. So as late as 5th century, Armenian started to be used as written form of language. So in other areas, the spread of Latin displaced the other widespread written form of languages, and there was observed a plurality of the styles of dress or costume worn by Romans. And the Romans also consumed a wide range of foods on a daily basis. And there was also seen a plurality of the forms of social organization and the pattern of settlements in the Roman society. So regarding the economic expansion, so the economic expansion of the Roman Empire was visible through the presence of harbors, mines, quarries, brickyards, olive oil factories, etc. The empire, the Roman Empire, imported wheat, wine, and olive oil in huge quantities, mainly from Spain, the Gallic provinces, North Africa, Egypt, and Italy. And these areas had conditions, best suited for growing these crops. The Spanish, producers of olive oil produce a better quality of oil, a better quality of oil, and that was sold at cheaper rates so that they could easily, capture markets from some other, Italian counterparts. So the liquid materials like wine and olive oil were transported in a container called amphorae. Okay, called amphorae. And these are images of amphorae. And they are survived of these fragments and shards in a large scale. So hence, it is possible, for the archaeologist to reconstruct, the exact shapes and contents of these containers by examining, the clay contents so as to find what they actually carried and where were they produced, and by matching the finds with clay pits throughout the Mediterranean Sea. And the Spanish olive oil was a vast, commercial enterprise that has reached its peak in the years 140 and 160, and it was carried in a container called Dressel 20. So these are containers called Dressel 20. So, for example, the finds of Dressel 20 are widely scattered across, sites in the Mediterranean. This suggests that the Spanish, olive oil might have been circulated widely. So evidences such as the remains of amphorae and their distribution maps, archaeologists could study that Spanish, producers had succeeded in capturing markets for olive oil from their persons. So it is probable, that the Spanish producers supplied a better quality oil at lower prices. And the success, of the Spanish oil growers was then dominated by North African producers. Later, the African dominance was broken by East. Turkey, Syria, and Palestine became major exporters of wine and olive oil during the later 5th and 6th centuries because the containers from Africa had considerably reduced, making presence in all Mediterranean markets. Regions having exceptional fertility. So the empire had many regions that had status for their remarkable fertility. In the words of Strabo or Pliny, Campania in Italy, Sicily, and Fayum in Egypt, Galilee, southern Gaul, etc. So these were among the most densely settled and wealthiest parts of the empire. And these concerned, regions having best of its cultivated crops by their respective inhabitants and further exported its large quantities to Rome. Existence of territories in a less advanced state. So the large areas of the Roman territories were in a much advanced state. For instance, transhumance. Transhumance means the herdsman's regular annual movement between the higher mountain regions and the low lying ground in search of pasture for sheep and other flocks. And it was widespread in the countryside of Numidia, which lies in modern Algeria. So these pastoral, semi-nomadic communities were frequently on the move, with carrying their own oven-shaped huts with them. So as Roman estates expanded in North Africa, the pastures of those communities had mostly reduced and their movements have become strictly regulated. So even in Spain, the north was economically, much less developed. In these areas, peasantry, who were Celtic speaking, lived in hilltop villages known as Castilla. Indication of advances in diverse fields. So there are several indications of advances brought forward in different fields of the Roman Empire. So in the Roman Empire, water power was very efficiently used around Mediterranean, and there were advances in the water-powered milling technology, the use of hydraulic, mining techniques in Spanish gold and silver mines. So the hydraulic mining developed from ancient Roman techniques that used, water to excavate, soft underground deposits such as gold and silver. So there was the existence of well-organized commercial and banking networks in the Roman Empire. Other than that, there was the widespread use of money, which indicates that, the Roman Empire had an advanced economy. The first image, shows the water-powered milling technology. The second image shows what? The hydraulic mining technique. And this image indicates what? The widespread use of money by Romans.